And welcome back. It's time for this week's Capitol Report with Pat McGuigan at CapitolBeatOK.com. And Pat, this past weekend we lost a hero, Eli Wiesel, who survived the Nazi death camps as a boy, died at the age of 87. You have some specific memories about Wiesel and his role in understanding the horrors of World War II.
Yeah, there's a picture that American soldiers took when the Buchenwald concentration camp was liberated. Just to the left of the shoulder of the man who's standing and leaning against that pillar is the teenage Eli Wiesel. And Eli Wiesel was a boy removed from his home by force in May of 1944, wound up going through several concentration camps. He lost his father and two of his sisters, and one sister survived. He was a great man, an interesting man, Hungarian, who eventually became an American citizen. One of the blessings of my life was in several years ago on a trip to Taiwan with a big group of journalists. I met Charlotte Halle, who is the English editor of Haaratz newspaper. And to say that her worldview might be a little different than mine is an understatement. I'm more of a Jerusalem Post guy for people in the audience that knows what that means. But Charlotte and I became good friends. And the first thing I did when I heard of his death was I went and looked at Haaratz's coverage, the newspaper's coverage of his passing, and it was magnificent. Mr. Wiesel wrote a trilogy, Night, Dawn, Day. The first book was La Nuit, because French was the language he wrote primarily in. And it was a gripping memoir that he didn't write until the 50s. But what I remember the most, I guess, about him was his disagreement with another man I deeply respected and loved, and that's Ronald Reagan. And Reagan agreed to a request from the German government in 1985 to place a wreath at the graves of soldiers who had been in the SS. And it was a gesture, and it was something they asked him to do. It immediately caused a firestorm of bipartisan criticism, where you had moral majority and NAACP on the same side. Reagan's reaction to this was really interesting, because they had what was supposed to be a 5-minute meeting became like a half-hour meeting before Reagan presented an award to Wiesel at the White House. Reagan ultimately said, "He has taught us about death, but in the end, he teaches us about life." Wiesel made the point, "Mr. President, you should be with the victims of the SS, and even in the name of reconciliation, not do something about this." Well, again, part of Reagan's reaction that was so magnificent is he pointed out many people believe that reconciliation means forgetting. I assure you, we will never forget. Wiesel was a giant. He was one for the ages, in the category of a John Paul II or Alexander Solzhenitsyn or Sakharov, for that matter, or Lincoln, or a writer like Dickens. He was one of the best, and the world is a little less than it was 2 weeks ago.
Couldn't agree more. Well, you can read more about this and many other topics at CapitolBeatOK.com. For Pat McGuigan, I'm Alex Cameron. Have a great day.